In the first song, The Thin Ice, the child was born. In Another Brick in the Wall, Part 1, the child was in his infancy and his father left him to war. In this third song, the child grew up and went to school. This song is The Happiest Days of Our Lives. The lyrics go like this. When we grew up and went to school, there were certain teachers who would hurt the children in any way they could, by pouring their derision upon anything we did, exposing every weakness, however carefully hidden by the kid. But in the town it was well known when they got home at night, their fat and psychopathic wives would thrash them within inches of their lives. What is happening here? First of all, we need to define what school really is. In order to do this properly, I will borrow from the work of Michel Foucault. Michel Foucault, in his book Displacement and Punish, really addresses the issue of schools. And two quotes from Michel Foucault. The first one, schools serve the same social functions as prisons and mental institutions to define, classify, control, and regulate people. Second quote, is it surprising that prisons resemble factories, schools, barracks, and hospitals? What is Foucault trying to tell us? For Foucault, schools are machines of systematic oppression used by disciplinary societies to create docile bodies. The docile bodies in this particular case of schools being the students. In barracks, the docile bodies would be army men. In prisons, it would be prisoners. What are docile bodies for Foucault? Docile bodies are something that can be made out of formless clay, an inapt body from which the machine required can be constructed. Schools, in this sense, are machines that are training the students. They are training the body of the students into becoming a particular entity needed by the corresponding society. Schools are training camps. What would this imply? On an individual level, to move a bit more to psychoanalysis, the teacher is given a position of power over the students. The teacher can exercise power on the students. This power is given to him or her by the school, by disciplinary society. The teacher takes this power, and in the lyrics we find the teacher pours his derision upon the children. Knowing a bit of psychoanalysis, this derision is a form of humor, a form of mockery, meaning that the teacher is defending himself against something. Against what is this teacher defending himself? The answer is at the end of the song. Their fat and psychopathic wives would thrash them within inches of their lives. This is a song about displacement. The teacher is displacing his anger that he has towards his wife, towards the students. He has the power to exercise this abuse on the children and can express his anger freely towards the students. This is given to him by society. But he can't do this towards his wife. It would create him problems in his reality and the reality of his marriage and his experience of life. So this is what a defense is. What is displacement? Displacement was introduced by Freud as one of the processes of the dream work in his book, The Interpretation of Dreams. Freud realized that in dreams, what would happen? The emotion associated with one idea or experience is detached from it and attached to another one. What can this mean? If, for example, to give a very, very simplistic example of what this could mean, if someone is traumatized in some way because of something that happened to her or him, and this makes the person very sad on an unconscious level. This person might be having repetitive dreams where they're breaking items in the house. A glass falls on the floor, a bottle falls on the floor, something falls on the floor. And in the dream, they feel this immense sadness towards this very petty thing that might have happened, that they wouldn't react this way in waking real life. Here, the emotion of sadness has been displaced from the original object, the original trauma, to something much more benign or simplistic. So this process is something the unconscious can undergo. Freud then continues by saying that this also happens in the formation of symptoms, meaning that this displacement becomes also a defense in waking life, where the emotional charge is displaced from one object to another by a chain of associations. I displace my anger towards someone that would create problems in my life, my boss, my wife, whatever, to another object on which I can exercise this anger. To develop to Lacan. For Lacan, his most famous quote is, "The unconscious is structured like a language." One of the implications of this quote is that the processes the unconscious undergoes can be compared to the processes of language. For Lacan, the unconscious is structured like a signifying chain, a chain of signifiers. Signifiers being fragments of language or words that signify something else. These links between the signifiers, these chains, would be apparent, for example, in somebody undergoing the clinical process of psychoanalysis. You're in a psychoanalysis session with your therapist, and you're doing free association, and you're speaking about something, and then suddenly this something takes you someplace else, and you start talking about some other thing. This signifier linked to another, to another, to another, to another. This is the chain of signifiers apparent in the unconscious of the subject during psychoanalysis. What is displacement then for Lacan? Since the processes of the unconscious can be compared to the processes of language, displacement Lacan compares to the linguistic process of metonymy. Metonymy is it's a figure of speech. It's a form of figurative language in which a word is replaced by something very close to the original meaning. For example, you're watching the news and the news says, "The White House declared war on Iraq." You immediately understand that it's not the building, the White House, that declared war on Iraq. The White House represents the government of the United States of America. This is a metonymy. The signifier, the White House, replaced the government of the United States. Just like for our teacher, displacement being compared to a metonymy, the teacher replaced the signifier wife with students. So in the psyche and the unconscious of the teacher would want to be thinking, "I am angry at my wife." But wife is displaced to students. "I am angry at my students." This allows the teacher to release his anger somewhere allowed to him by disciplinary society without having to confront his wife at home.